This episode of Upstream in Perspective is brought to you by IHS Markit's Upstream Insight team. Our team of industry experts analyse the interplay of geopolitical structures, government priorities, corporate strategies, and global markets and technologies to deliver forward-looking solutions that lead to more informed and efficient decisions. These solutions are available via recurring reports, interactive analytics, robust datasets, and bespoke engagements with experts. Learn more about our offerings at www.ihsmarkit.com/energy. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host for Upstream in Perspective, Kiran Sangera. On today's episode, I'm joined by Nick Sharma and Kunfeng Zhu from our Upstream Research and Consulting team for the APAC region. They'll be providing insight on shale and tight gas in China. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thanks, Kieran.
So let's start with unconventional oil and gas development. We know that unconventional oil and gas development revolutionized North America's upstream sector, with US tight oil production growing fast enough by 2015 to influence the decisions of OPEC. China is often flagged as one of the countries with most unconventional opportunity, with large resource potentials. How would you describe the status of unconventional oil and gas development in China today? Are we in the very earliest stages of experimentation, or is more happening than many realize?
Thanks for the question, Kieran. I believe the best way to set the context of progress is via numbers. So I would like to list a few numbers. China's shale gas production in 2018, last year, was 10.2 BCM. BCM is a billion cubic meter, mainly from Sichuan Basin. So the production has increased from a baseline of 0.2 BCM in 2013, but will be considerably smaller than the 60 to 100 BCM number set in the 12th five-year plan set in 2011. So our expectation is that both Sinopec and CNPC, who will drill hundreds of shale gas wells, will achieve a number. We don't believe they can achieve 20 BCMs by 2020, but will be a number that is close to that number. So overall, I think it's fair to say that on the shale front, the key companies in CNPC and Sinopec have moved past the experimentation stage, and now need to move to a more refined and well-driven execution plan. And on the tight gas front, we have seen quite a few successful tight gas projects partner with IOCs, such as Total or Shell. And the government has been talking about subsidies for tight gas for a while to boost tight gas production. But the challenge lies in the categorization of tight gas. There's no clear definition for tight gas until last week. So we have seen the Ministry of Finance released a policy on unconventional gas subsidies, and tight gas is finally included for the subsidy. And along with the policy, a standalone definition of tight gas and tight gas field has been provided. And one more information is that CNPC has set a target to produce 32 BCM in 2020 and 35 BCM tight gas in 2025. So we can expect more investment in tight gas in the coming years.
Thanks for that, Kunfeng. So unconventional development in the US has taken place in the wide open spaces of North Dakota, where population density is low, to much more dense population areas like Fort Worth in Texas. At its peak, operators were drilling the Barnett Shale in the cul-de-sacs of suburban neighborhoods around Fort Worth or between runways at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. Is population density a challenge to China unconventional development, or what other unique challenges that China faces?
Yeah, so I'll pick this one up, Kieran. It's Nick here. So yes, I think you picked on one of the big ones. Population density is a challenge for shale gas development, and there are a number of unique challenges that US don't have, that being one of them. The key basin, Sichuan, is hilly. It's highly populated, and therefore, you've got a big issue around road construction, materials and transportation, and also managing the local communities. And this issue then is not only constrained to the Chinese entities, but also the IOCs like Shell. So That's one aspect of the management of the operations. The other one is land acquisition. US is very unique in its model because operators and the landowner can reach a financial agreement on leasing their land, while in China or any other really jurisdiction in the world, primarily it's owned by the government, and the local government in this case in China sets a compensation standard for the villages. So that makes the land acquisition process longer. It creates conflicts between the villages who believe they're not fairly compensated. And these are just two of the issues. There's other issues such as the depth of the shale in China is a lot deeper, which means more time and more cost, water access issues. So I think the conclusion here is the NOCs realized relatively early that the know-hows or experiences from US cannot be replicated in China, and there really needs a tailor-made solution for China.
Thanks for that, Nick. Both US and China are the biggest consumers of oil and gas. Shale revolution has made the US less dependent on imported oil and gas, while China's dependency keeps increasing. Shale gas seems an opportunity for China to copy this success. Has the government done anything to make it happen?
Kieran, let me answer this one. So energy security issue has been hot recent days. A lot of people are discussing about it. The national energy security is always and will always be an issue for China. So from the outlook of both oil and gas demand, we can see that both oil and gas are increasing, while domestic production cannot catch up with the pace. That leads to an increase in dependency on imported oil and gas. The success of US in energy self-sufficiency is really driving a rethink in China, and in particular on what steps they can take to improve the regulatory policies to catalyze the unconventional resource development. And at the early stage, subsidy was the primary tool used. And as I just talked about, we have new policy on tight gas, on unconventional gas subsidy last week. So at the beginning, that includes only coalbed methane and shale gas. So the lower than expected shale gas production has led to the government to initiate further reform in E&P sector. And the E&P sector policy reform really kicked off in 2017, and it's been accelerated recently. The most important objective of the reform is to diversify the participants in E&P, which is crucial for unconventional resource development. To attract more IOCs and independents, the government is also trying to simplify the approving process, adapting policies that are more suitable for unconventional resource development, such as canceling the approval requirements for ODP. ODP is the overall development program, and replacing it with registration. So those are the reforms to adjust the complaints from IOCs in unconventional gas projects. We expect E&P sector reform will be further accelerated as the energy security concerns continue to accelerate after the trade disputes with US. All the NOCs are shifting their focus back to China, while the government will further enable unconventional production growth by improving E&P policies.
Thanks for that, Kunfeng. So Nick, I wanted to direct the next question to you. US shale revolution was kicked off by small companies. There are a large number of players contributing to advancements of shale gas and oil in the US. Who are the main players leading China's unconventional activity? Are there IOCs or US independents contributing to it?
Well, at present, Sinopec and CNPC really they dominate the landscape of production of that 10.2 BCM number a year for 2018. And the early stages, even as early as 2008, we had a lot of large IOCs and independents set up joint study agreements, but then no PSCs reach FID. So we really are back to kind of the square one situation of the Chinese oil companies dominating the domestic shale gas. But that's not a true reflection of China E&P. In the offshore side, there's a big set of companies, and even on the tight gas, Shell and CNPC signed, the project in 1999 on the Changbai tight gas project, and there's a FID for phase 2 approved last year, and then Total has the Sulis South Gas project. with CNPC also. So, Shell and Total have showed that joint ventures with key technology angles can be very successful. One of the issues is that while there was big effort in 2011 and 2012 to bring a new set of players, and we did get 21 block awards over those 2 years, they were really awarded to SOEs, private companies, utility companies that really didn't bring much oil and gas experience to the table, and therefore the corresponding results weren't successful. So there is a clear intention, I think, as we speak about energy security and increasing the production, that the government wants more competition, but this will require more attractive acreage being available, more better partnerships with the national companies, and that would then set the basis for production growth.
Thanks. The more complex above-ground challenges and subsurface situations have made the well cost in China higher than the US. Have the well economies improved recently from know-hows gained in joint ventures, technical improvements, and advancements in the learning curve?
Yes, Kieran, it's well known that the drilling unconventional gas in China is more expensive than US. So the factors of above ground challenges, like more complex subsurface, have made the well economics very challenging in Sichuan, especially in the early stages of the learning curve. So the well economics was the major reason for most of the IOCs and independents not progressing the joint studies or PSCs in the past in last years. So, but from our studies, the economics of tight gas projects are much better. It is less challenging to drill in older spacing or terrain basin, and that's why we have seen a few successful tight gas projects with IOCs. But the well cost across the board have reduced significantly in recent years. Partly that is due to the cyclical cost reduction. And when we talk about cyclical cost, is the service company lower the cost in low oil price environment, and partly due to the technology advancements. Sichuan's unique challenges, as highlighted previously, makes the ability to draw and replicate the US experience very unlikely. The technology advancement is a result of combined efforts. It's not only from one single source. It includes like learnings from the partnerships in unconventionals, or either partnership in China or from the US, and learnings from the leading oilfield service companies like Schlumberger, or improvements from drilling the hundreds of wells. A more streamlined and experienced supply chain and oilfield service capacity also contributes to that. So those efforts successfully lower the well cost significantly to make shale gas more commercially viable nowadays.
Thanks, Kunfeng. So the next question, I wanted to direct it to the both of you. Looking forward to about 5 or 10 years, what will we be saying about Chinese unconventionals? Based on what we know now, do we see China becoming as big or bigger as a contributor to global supply from unconventionals than the United States? And my final question is, are you more optimistic on the country's tight oil or shale gas potential, or equally optimistic on the potential of both?
Well, let me take it first. From my judgment, so judging from the current investment plans of Sinopec and CNPC, they shift their focus to domestic production for energy security concerns, and the strong push of the government by accelerating E&P sector reforms. We do expect shale gas and tight gas to grow at a faster pace than it is now. And in the short term, the 30 BCM national shale gas target is unlikely to be achieved, but that will be achieved a few years later. Overall, we are more optimistic on tight gas. It has plenty of resources in Orders and terrain basin, and less above ground challenges in a flatter and less populated area and less complex subsurface.
Yeah, and I think from my point, the key message here is that there is an overall trajectory, and that is clearly on the right track. Expecting a US-style revolution in terms of those production numbers is going to take time, and it's not something in the 5 or 10 year outlook. I think for me, the key message here is the NOC partnerships for capital and technology that we've seen in the tight gas, can that be replicated on the shale front? And I think the important signal to watch is the government's intention to really drive this policy change. We saw the subsidy, we've seen the definition of tight gas. So clearly, these are things we were talking about a couple of weeks ago in our internal research, and now they're happening in reality. So those are the signals that I think companies will want to be looking at more closely.
Perfect, thanks. And my final question, which might throw you off slightly, if you could meet anyone in the world at any time period, who would it be and why? I'll pass this one over to Nick first.
Wow, okay, that's put me on the spot. Well, I'm a fan of cricket, and we are in the World Cup season right now, so it's only fair that I think about a name in that world, and probably be Don Bradman from Australia. He was a cricketer of his times, and his numbers are double of any peer in the history of time. So it'd be interesting to really see how good he really was. So that's my person.
Well, for me, actually, sorry, Nick. Actually, I've never heard the name you mentioned. Cricket is not popular in China. For me, I guess my answer would be like Leonardo da Vinci, and simply because I just read a book, biography for him. He seems to be a very interesting people that I would like to talk with and to learn from him. That's my answer.
Perfect, thanks. Those are both really interesting answers, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining me on the podcast today, and we hope to have you back soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. To read additional insights from Nick, Kunfeng, or any of our experts, visit our blog at www.ihsmarket.com/energyblog. Also, if you haven't checked us out on social media, please search for IHS Markit Energy on either Twitter or LinkedIn.
This podcast contains information and insights copyrighted by IHS Markit. To learn more about IHS Markit Energy Solutions, visit ihsmarkit.com/energy. That's ihsmarkit.com/energy.